Hello everyone, my name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents and in our fifth COTC preview for games in game week 17. I'm delighted, firstly, to introduce to you our Manchester United correspondent, Gary Robinson. How are you, Gary?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. And finally, for his Clash of the Correspondents debut, it's our Nottingham Forest correspondent, Mark Sutherns. How are you, Mark?
Evening. Yeah, I'm very good. Looking forward to getting back to domestic action. Definitely.
Good stuff. Gary, before we talk on current affairs, there's obviously a big story involving your football club as the World Cup kicked off. Cristiano Ronaldo is no longer a Manchester United player. What's your reaction a month on?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I said in the summer when I came on that that's exactly what we should have done in the summer. We should have thanked him for everything, paid him off, put a nice little video on Twitter and said, go and find whichever club you want. And that would have been good for him and good for us. And everyone involved would have been spared this charade that happened, at the start of the World Cup. He was never going to feature under Ten Hag. I can't believe that, a grown-up 37-year-old player like Ronaldo, a manager and a club as, who've got as much money, disposable money kicking about in terms of wages, couldn't have just come to an agreement with Ronaldo and said, thanks for everything. If you want to go and play elsewhere, then you and your agent could go and find someone. So yeah, I think it's sad in a way. He's
Is it tainted?
Well, in the short term, but in 20, 30 years, these things are probably forgotten about, aren't they? People even now, people don't necessarily remember what Wayne Rooney did towards the end of his career, do they? In terms of rinsing us out of contracts and trying to get away from the club, and you don't think about that, do you? 10, 15 years on. So I mean, probably now it is, but when it comes to reviewing his career and his United career, I don't think it will be. Ultimately, it'll just be a footnote, won't it? Like it is for loads of United players. Yapstam, Keane, Van Nistelrooy, all these players went unfairly or in dubious circumstances. But it's never lasting.
Is there a reason
really?
that happens with many high-profile players at United? In Beckham's another example, isn't he?
Well, most of it's Ferguson, wasn't it? And his own ego. I mean, you look at like Stam, Beckham, Keane. They all left the club too early, probably. But Ferguson could get away with it because he knew that he would mask it with his genius and transfer dealings, etc., etc. But so no, I mean, it's probably just a Ferguson thing, most of it, isn't it? And then obviously this one's just Ronaldo being
Ronaldo.
Yeah. It strikes me that he can't accept that his top level career was over. Well, probably when he came to us, really. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to us, would he? And he's had a terrible year personally as well. So I don't know if that plays into it, but yeah, it's a shame really, because it could have been so easy for it to end nicely. They could have bigged up last year and said top scorer last year and came back and thanks to the hat tricks and the screamers and blah blah blah, and given him whatever his contract is and said, right, go and play for whoever, and ended it nicely for everyone, couldn't they? But instead it just dragged on and it was always going to end like this, wasn't it?
Whose decision do you think it was that he stayed? Because I think we all thought, based on what we'd learned from Ten Hag and his Ajax team, that he wasn't going to work. Ronaldo wasn't going to work in a Ten Hag team. Ronaldo had said that he wanted out. We thought that Ten Hag would be happy to let him go. So who ultimately stopped a move happening last summer? Or was it a case that no one was interested?
Well, I can only think either no one sufficiently prestigious enough was interested, so he was sort of hanging on for a Chelsea or a PSG or going back to Juventus or Madrid or something like that, and then he wasn't too keen on going to, I was going to say the MLS. He probably couldn't have gone to the MLS, but Saudi Arabia or,
Mum's the word.
Places like that. Or I can only assume that someone at a board level said to Ten Hag, we could do with keeping him. He's on $500,000 a week. We don't want to pay his wages off. He's on $500,000 a week. We get good social media, whatever the exposure from him. And maybe it was a kind of case where no one was willing to force it. Everyone was sort of waiting maybe Ronaldo's waiting for United to bin him off, and United thought Ronaldo would force it, and it just kind of never happened. And then the window went, and they all decided to leave it. But you could tell, was it the Brighton game? He's on the bench, and he just thought, he doesn't look happy. He doesn't want to. It's not like he'd been like a Gary Neville or a Scholes, where he's on the bench and he was, willing to be there and ready to play 20 minutes a match if it mattered. It never looked a natural fit. So I don't know.
Yeah, look, I don't think his legacy will be tainted. Just having Mark in here is making me remember Az's words. I'm gonna guess 16 months ago, but it's Ronaldo, Mark. How do we reflect on this second spell as a neutral, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, you're referring to the episode in which I kind of was less infused about Ronaldo than perhaps many United fans were coming back to the Premier League. I didn't really see him producing at that level again, and he took me by surprise. He really did. It was a great season for him in a difficult season for United with all the the change and the transition they've made. But I always felt when Ten Hag came in, just like you said, he wouldn't have a place, and I really thought that it would be settled before the season started. And I think what Gary said is probably spot on. I think that he was waiting for the right club to come in, and it never happened. He didn't get the right offer, and he probably perhaps had a higher ideal in mind in terms of what club he would go to next, and they didn't come in, so he stayed where he was. And it's really unfortunate the way it's ended.
What's your take on Ten Hag, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it was an inauspicious start, wasn't it? I mean, that Brentford game was the turning point, and I think at that point there were a lot of questions being asked about whether he was going to be able to cut it. It was so early, though. I think it was unreasonable to say that he wouldn't adapt eventually, and he has, right? So he's made a good impression on me. I think the fact that he reacted so quickly to what happened at Brentford, in that he put the things right that he needed to, the playing out from the back, and that was clearly not working, and he made sure that he improved on that, and slowly but surely United have gained confidence in attack and looked like they're a threat again, and they're certainly more solid at the back as a result. So you can't argue with what he's done in that, since that Brentford game in particular.
Yeah, I think, Gary, you're more likely for top four than I'd have thought in pre-season, actually, which I think is credit to him. I mean, it probably speaks on certain other things like Liverpool's form, for example.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Ten Hag? I get the impression you're a bit mixed on it.
Well, I think he had he didn't have a great start, and it should have been obvious to him before the Brighton game, before the season kicked off, that he couldn't play Harry Maguire at centre-back. He should have known that. But having said that, he addressed that quickly. And we have, like Mark says, we've had a decent recovery. We've not had that many games, so it's probably still quite early to judge him. But I still feel that as good as the results have, or as decent as the results have been over the last maybe 2-3 months, or however long it's been now, it still feels a bit like he hasn't got us playing in any different style, really, to this idea that he was going to come in with this Dutch philosophy and this style of play. I'm not really sure if he's actually implemented that yet, which is fine. It's still early days, but we seem to. I think he deserves a lot of credit for getting the balance of the team a bit better, and not playing McTominay and getting Casemiro embedded in there, and getting Varane and Martinez at centre back when they're fit. But other than that, he's not managed to get Sancho firing. We've not got a striker that's working still, which isn't his fault, obviously. We've just spoken about Ronaldo. Anthony's come in, not had many games. Garnacho, Rashford. I don't know if he knows his best 11, or
no, but then
he certainly doesn't know his best front four. That's for sure. And I don't know what his style of play is really, apart from making us a bit more solid, which wasn't on the tin.
I feel like it's going to become a bit clearer now Ronaldo's gone, ironically, because we look at some of the performances when he hasn't played. I was at Old Trafford in game week 12, mate, and he absolutely destroyed my team. You made my team look so bad.
So that was probably our best. Well, not probably. That was our best performance this season, and probably of the last 2 seasons. That was a genuine. Oh wow! But that has been a one-off, really. There's not been many other. Even the wins against Liverpool and Arsenal at Old Trafford. Which, look, if you beat Liverpool and Arsenal at Old Trafford, then it doesn't really matter how you do it. But they weren't based on some grand new philosophy, were they? They were based on digging in, counter-attack, and
the intensity against Liverpool and Tottenham specifically was big, mate.
No, that's fine, but that isn't a tactical thing, is it? That's just being intense, which is great, and we haven't had that for a while. But I think the expectation when Ten Hag came in is that we were getting sort of a tactical imprint, which I don't think's come in consistently yet. Which I'm not saying it has to, but other managers have got tactical imprints in quicker, haven't they? But he hasn't had, the Ronaldo thing might free him up a bit, and it's been a bit of a bitty season, hasn't it? A difficult start for us. We had the break for the Queen, we've had the World Cup. It has been a patchy start. So maybe this will be a good run for us now, where it's going to be game after game until March, I guess, is it, when the international break. So maybe now is the time where we can actually see what he wants to do and get a system going on up front.
Gary, do you think that I know Ronaldo's impact on the pitch, or the fact that he didn't work as a United player under Ten Hag? Do you think though that he was also an influence in a negative way in training and around the club under Ten Hag? Do you think that the relationship between them obviously was in a bad way, and do you think that may have affected?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he seems a funny one. Even at Portugal, it seems to be that all the rumours around him are that he's a bad influence, and that he's having this a bad impact on the players and the manager, and there's just a lot of noise around Ronaldo, isn't there? No matter what's going on, whether he's playing well, not playing, whatever. But then most of the players who are actually playing, who speak about him, hail him as a legend and a great inspiration, and the rest of it. So I think it's difficult to tell, really. And maybe this will be another one that in 3 or 4, 5, 10 years it'll come out that that he was a bad influence, or that maybe it's that people don't dare, because it's Ronaldo. Maybe people don't dare speak ill of him, because the only people who seem to speak ill of him are sort of unnamed sources around the camp. I can't think of any actual player who's ever played with him who
I don't know if any player's going to be brave enough to do that, and I'm sure a lot of them as well would look up to him as possibly the greatest footballer I've ever seen, right? So I think that's where the influence concern would probably be at, was what Mark's referencing to, is a lot of people would have followed his line, right? If Ronaldo went, training shit, the influence is a lot of the others are going to think training shit.
Oh yeah, I suppose there is that, yeah. But but then a lot of the rumours that we did hear was that there was a Maguire camp that didn't fancy Ronaldo anyway. But again, these are all.
You've got a Maguire camp. I feel like I need to hear more about this.
I wonder who was in that.
Is that a subs bench?
Well, yeah, but I think I just think there's a lot. There's never anything definitive ever come out, and in this day and age, things do come out pretty quickly, don't they? So yeah, I don't know is the honest answer, but I'm sure there'll be a few autobiographies in 3 or 4 years that might tell us the answer.
Yeah,
I just wonder
written
if
by Piers Morgan.
if United play well and the results go well these next 3 or 4, I wonder if people will say, "Oh, the club's lighter. It feels better. It feels more." You know what I mean? I wonder if that'll be a narrative.
But you can never tell anyway, because everyone said that 2 weeks ago when Portugal won 6-1, didn't they? And then 4 days later, Morocco were beating them comfortably. So it's you don't know what this impact is anyway, do you? Really?
Mark, last time we spoke, we had a kind of resignation feeling that Steve Cooper was going to be gone. And then suddenly this new contract appeared out of nowhere. Can you reflect on that? And perhaps, I'm going to guess at the time, you must have been surprised.
Yeah, I was.
Most people thought he was going to get the boot any day.
Yeah, I was dreading hearing the news that we lost patience. And I think it would have come down. I think I said at the time that it would have taken a big name, and we'd have had to have found a big name to convince Marcus to make that move. And maybe we would have made that move had he found the manager that he wanted. But I'd like to think that the contract came out of the fact that there was never any doubt that he was going to keep faith with him. And maybe we thought that the contract was a contributing factor to our start. It must have played on Cooper's mind. He got asked about it in every press conference, like, when's your future going to be sorted out, etc. And maybe, the owners felt that was playing a part in perhaps Cooper not being able to give his full attention to the job at hand. And let's face it was a massive job. So it's certainly had a positive impact since, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think most neutrals were looking at it now and going, well, what happens if you lose the next 4 or 5? It was probably still going to go, wasn't it? If the results had continued.
I don't know. We've got the long-term plan might well be that we have to go down and come back up again. I don't know. It's difficult these days to come up and stay up, right? And we're doing our best by signing as many players as we can, and we'll probably roll the dice again.
We've noticed.
Right? Yeah. So I think that, I think we went for the old Neil Warnock approach of let's sign 25 players, and if 3 of them work, that might be enough to keep us up. And who knows, it might be the case. I think that we'd have stuck by him no matter what. I'd like to think that. If we do go down, and I don't want to talk like that, but if we do go down, I look at the players that we'll probably retain. And if we have Cooper manager as well, I think we'd probably be in a very good position to come back up again. Maybe that's what the owners are thinking as well, as in, it is a very difficult task they gave him. Maybe some would say impossible. So and there's no doubt he's a fantastic championship manager who would put us in a good position to get straight back up. So maybe that's part of the plan. And we're not thinking like that. I don't think the owners are thinking like that, but maybe right in the back of their mind, they're like, that was a thing that they had factored in.
We've certainly seen that longevity work. Sean Dyche at Burnley, I'm not comparing the two managers stylistically, but came up, went down. They gave him the chance to bring him back up, and then they stayed for much longer than you would expect a Burnley to stay. Whereas in your case, I think there's an expectation that should you stay and then stay a second year, then Nottingham Forest will potentially become a permanent fixture in the Premier League. The size of the football club suggests that it certainly probably should be so. We know there's plans in place to increase the capacity up to 40,000 at the City Ground. How big was that Liverpool victory?
Oh, it's huge. Absolutely huge.
And how did you feel emotionally from that, to win a game like that? I
guess it was kind of, it harked back to the cup performances of the previous season. And I knew that, when I saw the team sheet, I knew we had a chance. I think Klopp was really complacent really with his team selection there. I think he felt that they would have enough to win the game, but if you saw the cup performances when Premier League sides came to us in the cup and didn't perhaps play their full 11, that was enough to give us that opportunity to take them, and we did. And yeah,
I was just going to jump in and say I very recently saw a side rock up at the City Ground and play a far stronger team than they should have and got their pants pulled down.
Yeah, you were there at the time, and the crowd played their part. It was a big occasion. It was great having Liverpool back at the City Ground, of course, because that was a nod to the glory days, really, that rivalry we had with Liverpool, which was legendary at the time and short-lived, really. But yeah, that's been a turning point, and I think we've seen players like Yates and Gibbs-White really step up since then and realise that we are Premier League players, and we're going to show that now week after week. So, and other players are settling in. So it's been. I knew that we'd struggle over the first month or two it's been a bit longer, but that I see as the turning point, and it triggered a run of games where we look hard to beat. And the next piece of the jigsaw is, can we be more of a threat? And I think if we can find that, I think we've got every chance.
I do recall you saying, you obviously finished with Brentford and Palace at home. I do recall you saying on Black Box, must get 4 points from these two games, which you did. So has that left a feeling of positivity? If you're going to just remove the Arsenal game, we look at it now and go, it's 3 clean sheets in 5 games.
Yeah, and it should have been, we should have beaten Brentford. I think we were tad unfortunate. I mean, and I look at the fixtures we've got coming up, and obviously the game we're going to talk about is a very, very difficult game, and I don't know if we'll get anything out of that. I doubt it, but I do think home to Chelsea, that's going to be a real test for Chelsea. They're not in great shape, and they're going to have players still fatigued from the World Cup, of course, and we are going to be very much up for that. They're going to have a tough game at our place. And then after that, you know, Southampton, Leicester as a derby, and then we've got a run of the Fulham Bournemouth run again. So I think we've got games ahead of us where we can get back into the groove that we fell into after that Liverpool game.
Yeah, that January spell. Obviously, you've got Chelsea's been moved to New Year's Day now. And speaking from having been to your place twice, not so much in the League Cup, but certainly the atmosphere in the Premier League game when we played each other was great. After Chelsea, Southampton, Leicester, Bournemouth, Leeds, Fulham actually probably looks like your best run till the end of the season, actually, in terms of a cluster of fixtures. You think, can we get sort of 1.7 points per game over this period, something like that, which would be more than the norm. It feels like a really big period, actually. Gary, how do you see Forest as a neutral?
Well, I found it quite difficult to judge them, really, because the team that got them promoted, probably, I don't know how many people have changed from it, but quite a few, isn't it? And they tried to embed a few players, haven't they? And there's at one point where you thought, God, these might finish bottom by a mile, but then, like you say, they beat Liverpool. And slowly but surely they've cobbled together a few results. And now I think they're probably in that pack of, well, I don't know how many teams. There's probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 teams in that bottom half
risk.
league.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you go, but you know, you probably wouldn't. It could just be. It might come down to whoever strings together 2 good results in May, or whoever wins a 6-pointer in April. I don't think there's a lot between a lot of these teams. Really, obviously, we've got a January transfer window as well. But if you're judging it now, there's not a lot between any of these. A lot of these teams, really, is there? And I think I think with a team like Southampton, who you'd probably, Wolves, Southampton Wolves at the start of the season, you'd probably have said, well, they'll be all right. And now you go, they might be the 2 worst teams in the division. So, all of that combined, you think Forest could, I think the same with Bournemouth as well. There was first few matches of the season with Bournemouth, you thought, these might not even beat Derby's record.
Yeah,
absolutely. And now all of a sudden you're going, I think Bournemouth will stay up now. And
they'll spend.
And they can spend again as well. So, yeah, I think there's I don't know, maybe, 7 or 8 teams at the bottom, and you think, they're all much of a muchness, really. And so, yeah.
Do you want to play a quiz, guys?
Oh, go on.
I reckon Gary's going to get the answer to this, but maybe Mark's nodding. Yeah, what the score was the last time you two played each other?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know, Mark?
I don't know, no.
Go on, Gary.
Well, in the Premier League, I assume it was the 8-1, was it? Yeah.
Wow.
Ron Atkinson in charge for Forest, was it?
I don't know if it'd be 8-1 at the weekend. And I'm going to
I don't
this
think
one.
Forest won't get 8.
No, I mean, it's not. Well, they might not get 1. Do you know how many away goals you've scored this season, Mark?
Oh, yeah, we've been dreadful away from home. Yeah. What we got? Have we got 1? Oh, we got 1 at Wolves. Did we not?
Nah, you lost 1-0, mate.
We lost 1-0, didn't we? I'm trying to think, have we scored away from home all season? Yes, we have. Everton. Jono scored at Everton. Yeah.
Brennan Johnson scored at Everton. You have scored 1 away goal, and that away goal was in game week 3.
Yeah.
Can you put your finger on why that might be happening, Mark? I know you're going to be underdogs in so many of these games, But there are fixtures in there, such as Wolves, where you'd hope to get something. They're below you in the table, for example. Is there any reason on that? We've obviously spoken about the atmosphere in the home games. Is the away form particularly concerning?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we at home the atmosphere adds. It is a 12th man. It's a bit like Goodison Park in that respect, and I expect that to continue. Away from home, we were strong in the promotion season. We were strong away from home at the end. We went into every game thinking we would win, and away from home, our style of football was effective because we were good on the counter. I just don't think that system has set in yet, and that method of play has been effective for us because we've just looked too open at the back until recently. So I think that it will come. I think we've got pace on the break. We just haven't had that quick transition that we need. It hasn't happened. We signed players that, like Mangala and O'Brien in the middle, that looked like they were going to facilitate that quick transition and allow us to use Aaron and Johnson's pace, but it hasn't happened. Scarpa looks like he could be a key player in that, from what I've seen already and from what we've heard about from him from his time in Brazil. And I think we will sign players with that in mind again. So I think we will get some results away from home that will surprise a few people before the end of the season, but I don't think it's going to come at United.
Okay. You've obviously mentioned him, Gustavo Scarpa, new signing. What can you tell us about him? And I presume he can't play till, is it the Chelsea game?
After January the 1st. Yeah, I mean, he was player of the season in Brazil for a side that were a good side. And I think it was 8 goals, 7 assists. So, he's an all-round kind of creative player, but with a threat as well. Set pieces are excellent. Shots from range. I saw him against Valencia in the friendly, and he already looks like he isn't going to shy away from the physical side of the game either. He's been saying he's been working on his defensive side of the game, and he looked up to speed with the pace, excellent first touch, and really good technically. So I think Lingard's going to have to perform at a very high level to stay in the team, because I think the odds are that we'll end up with Gibbs-White, Scarpa, and Johnson playing, and then Lingard's probably struggling to get in, depending if we play Johnson wide or down the middle. So I expect to see Scarpa's arrival pep Lingard up a bit, because he'll want to stay in the team, but he hasn't really done enough really to warrant it. But coming back to Old Trafford, you never know. I guess, Gary, he's the player that you're thinking he might just pull a rabbit out of the hat, right?
Well, yeah, he's. You wouldn't be surprised, would you? But he's that kind of player, Lingard, isn't he? He'll do nothing for months, years on end, and then bits of form can come out of nowhere. And like you said, a return to Old Trafford might be the thing that sparks it into him.
I'm thinking way more about the return to West Ham in game week 25, to be honest.
Yeah.
That'll really piss a few off. Just before we finish on Scarpa, what is he then, Mark? Is he a 10? Is he a wide forward?
He's an 8 or 10.
Okay.
As I see it. So that'll be really interesting to see where we put him. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't tried to put Gibbs-White back into an 8 role and play him as one of the midfield 3, because he played there for Wolves at times. We bought Gibbs-White as a 10, but I do wonder, and he's done, I think the last 3 or 4 games he's really come to life and shown he can be a factor in keeping us up. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with Scarpa now, because he's now got the option where he could move Gibbs-White. I don't know how he gets all those creative players. I don't know how Lingard, Gibbs-White and Scarpa play together. Just don't see it. So I think we've got some decisions to make. I don't think there's any doubt though Scarpa's going to be a big player for us.
I don't foresee the team playing without Gibbs-White at the moment.
It's
not to say he's going to play every game, but he feels at the hub of things.
First name on the tee sheet. He's been excellent, and he's the kind of player who will drag us to win. Against Palace, he was dragging us to that game, dragging us to the points. He got the winning goal, but it was more than that. It was just his overall performance, and he's starting to play like he did. When he came to us for that second leg and he played up front for Sheffield United, it was an incredible performance. He looked like he was going to carry them to win the game. And I saw a player there that I thought if Forest could sign him, he'd be a great asset to us. And he's starting to get towards that now. He's starting to be that player who can drag us to those grinding 1-0 victories just with a touch of brilliance or creative flair. And Scarpa's in that, he could fit that bracket as well. Now, will we get them both in the team? I don't know. We'll have to see. I'd like to think we can, but then that leaves Lingard out in the cold, I think.
Gary, I don't normally do quizzes on Clash of Correspondents, but I'm in the mood now. Who was the last away player to score at Old Trafford this season?
Oh, bloody hell.
You can dive in if you fancy, Mark.
Martinelli?
You got the right game.
Saka, was it?
It is. Bukayo Saka, game week 6. So you haven't scored away from home since game week 3, Mark. United haven't conceded at home since game week 6 in the Premier League anyway. So I'm definitely picking Diogo Dalot in my FPL team, Gary. Apparently he's now got a hamstring injury. So what am I doing? Varane's not going to play by the sounds of it. Martinez is probably having a beer at the moment, I should imagine. Congratulations to him. I'm not going Luke Shaw by default here, am I, mate?
Well, I was having a look earlier in the week in preparation for this and trying to remember what United have been up to this season after the World Cup. But I was looking. So, even if Dalot's fit, if Varane doesn't play, we aren't likely to keep clean sheets. 4 of our 5 clean sheets this season have had Varane on the pitch. I was looking. I think Varane's played about 55% of the minutes this season of our minutes, and in that time we've only conceded 5 goals. In the 45% of the time when he hasn't played, we've conceded 15 goals. So if Varane doesn't play, we are not a consideration defensively for me. So given that Varane collapsed in a heap on Sunday,
fatigue though only.
Yeah, plus.
But he's not going to play against Forest.
No, plus the mental exhaustion of losing a World Cup final in such a dramatic way. And I think our games are, what, is it Sunday, Tuesday or something? I might have that wrong. But, by 2 weeks today, we'll have played our 3 Christmas games. You might not see Varane back before this Christmas run of fixtures ends. So... And then by then, it's the Manchester derby, isn't it? And then at that point, you're probably benching United defenders anyway. So I think even if Shaw plays, even if Dalot is fit, I think we might be in a void anyway. But Dalot is a good price, though, isn't he? But
very reasonable at 4.8. Yeah. A little bit of a bonus magnet as well, mate.
Yeah, he's a bonus magnet. He's not an attacking magnet, though, is he? And neither's Luke Shaw. I
feel like it's coming a little bit.
Yeah, but
with Dalot offensively, I've seen signs.
Yeah, they've not seen the actual returns, or have we? So I think it'd be given that you're probably not going to get the clean sheets. I don't know.
Forest at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home. And to clarify, it's Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Dalot's actually, if he is fit, he's been flogged already this season, actually, because I know you had a period where you had 4 games including Europa, 4 games in I think 12 days, I want to say, and he played 90 minutes in all of them.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag's got no faith in Wan-Bissaka whatsoever. So
we've got that. There's rumours he's going to go on loan, isn't there?
Yeah, so I think the only way that Dalot wouldn't play was if he shifted someone to right, Martinez to right back, or some combination of that. I don't think Wan-Bissaka's ever going to play for us again, possibly. But I just don't know I just don't think we're going to get the defensive returns, especially if Varane's not playing. I'd struggle to, even at 4.8, I think I'd struggle. It's more expensive than Ben White. There's a couple of good cheap 4 millioners that you might want to come in. We're all probably going to want a Cancelo or Reece James. Maybe.
What about De Gea, Gary? Because I've seen a few people talk about Kepa and everyone's going Kepa and Wall, but I've seen people today throw De Gea into the hat, and I'm thinking, that's not a bad shout. What do you think?
I'd prefer that to any of the defenders, I think, because it's a similar price, isn't it? And you might get the save returns, and then you're not using up a defender spot, and I'd prefer that. I couldn't really. I don't think I'll be buying any United defender or goalkeeper. But
Dave saves at 4.9 is perfectly reasonable to have. Look, he's picked up a 4-pointer at Fulham in a 2-1 win, right? Yeah. So you know as well that if the clean does come, He's capable of the hauls. It should be said 8 is his highest return in any game this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Mark raises, I mean, what we all know already is that most people kind of want to go Kepa, Ward, or Ward, Everson. I'm not seeing a lot of talk from many other goalkeepers, to be honest. De Gea might, as we approach the deadline, might become popular if Kepa's ruled out, and with these defensive issues where people just can't look. And I don't really want to miss out on that. Forest, Wolves, Bournemouth, because, mate, there's got to be something in there from a clean sheet perspective. There's got to be. Forest at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, mate. There must be. I'd fancy any team in this league to keep a clean sheet across those 3 fixtures at some point, I think.
Yeah, but you'd want one, you'd want at least 2 surely to make it worth it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but to be honest, I'd fancy it. But what you're probably going to say to me is, as it stands, Shaw will play left back. It's probably Lindelof and Maguire start against Forest at centre back. And who would play right back if Dallow's out?
Well, I don't know, but even if Dalot does play, do you want to own a defender of a team that's got Maguire and Lindelof at centre back?
I mean, I'm not buying any of them. I'm not buying either of them two. But I know as well, people are going to think the other side, shit, Dallow's a doubt. I'm going to buy Luke Shaw instead. Yeah. And you, Gary, we know is not a fan of Luke Shaw as a fantasy asset. You're not having it.
Well, he's never been a fantasy asset, has he? So,
well, I think he will be for some next week.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, you're basically talking us out of it. Go on, Mark, give us your neutral thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had Dalot in and out of my draft, but I as soon as I realised that Varane and Martinez would be out for at least a game, probably 2 games, I was with Gary. I kind of come to the conclusion that, I mean, it's hard as well. I mean, like, when you support Forest, I don't really want to back a team. I have got a United player in my team, and it's hard because you don't want to go into a game going, I want Forest to get a result, but I've also got a United player. But it's easier going for United attacker because obviously we can still get a point or something out of the game. Whereas if they keep a clean sheet, I don't see us not conceding. So I was never going to go a United defender really. And I think the Varane Martinez thing just taught me out of it even more. De Gea, I can see the logic, but I do think Kepa's too good to be true. And De Gea doesn't make a strong enough argument for me, I don't think.
No, my take on Kepa that I said on Monday's pod was I don't want to chase it. So if I don't go with him and suddenly he's in the team, there's 2 nice fixtures for Chelsea. Admittedly, Gary Mantle would tell us they've been shit defensively as well and would probably advise against. Then the double, then Palace at home. That's a nice run as well. I feel like I'd rather have Kepa with the insurance of Ward and go, well, fine, Ward plays instead, rather than go and chase Kepa. But if Kepa is ruled out for a couple of weeks, which we don't know at the time of recording, then De Gea would be certainly near the top of the playing goalkeepers I'd consider. I'd say we'd maybe consider yours, Mark. But he won't play against United. Dean Henderson is ineligible.
No, Hennessy will play. Don't worry me that. Hennessy's a good keeper, very experienced, and he will do a job. But Henderson, when he's back, I really thought Henderson would be the best 4-5, and he would be, I think, in people's thoughts if it wasn't for Kepa. Because I think he has, he saved the 2 penalties, and you would bet in him getting another couple of pen saves before the end of the season. So he could end up being the top scoring 4-5 keeper just off the back of the fact that we are improved defensively, and he's always got that penalty. I think he's got a 50% record over the last 20 penalties he's faced or something. I think he's saved 9 of 19, I think, which is ridiculous. So like every time we have a penalty against us, I think he's got, a 30-40% chance of saving it at the moment. So he's a good one to own on that score, but I just think Kepa again is because he's been performing so well for save points as well. You're getting a 4-5 in a allegedly top 6 defence who can also get you save points. You've got to think Chelsea are going to improve defensively over the second half of the season. Surely that's got to happen. They can't be as bad as they've been.
As we said, though, for yourselves, Mark, that's a good run. If you look past the United fixture, that's a good run of games you have. Just quick answer. Gary, if you had to go one of De Gea or Henderson, who would you go? Assuming you've got Ward, obviously, as coverage for game week 17 as insurance.
Well, I'd go De Gea. I couldn't have Henderson in that. That's just a personal thing. I don't think he's a bad shout, but yeah, probably for De Gea.
Yeah, he's
Not
not
having
said
that,
some,
Mark.
no, well, I can't blame him. He said some pretty controversial things that probably have burnt his bridges, I would have thought. Do you think he'll go back, Gary? Do you think there's a way back for him?
I don't think so. I think
I don't think he wants him back either.
Well, I think he's like you say, he's said some pretty stupid stuff anyway. I think he's had a decent opportunity at United and never really proven himself. So I would expect that we sell him in the summer, get some decent money for him, and use that money to buy our next, De Gea's long-term replacement.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked that we didn't work for a permanent deal. There was a lot of talk about he'll be a loan with a permanent deal. I got the impression that when he came, and I remember seeing Steve Cooper, embrace him, and I thought to myself, there's more to it here. I think Henderson's probably gone, look, I ain't going back. It will be a permanent deal. We've just got to sort it out.
Well, I think
as long as you stay up, presumably as well.
Yeah,
Mark.
that'll be it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think last summer would have been a chance for Forest as well, because that would have been the time when United might have thought, well, do you know what? We'll just take 30 million, 40 million now, have that money to spend and just get him out of the club. Whereas now, if he has, even if Forest stay up, you might have the likes of, you might have a whole host of clubs who might fancy him, or abroad, or So I
think Mark's right though. That'll probably be permanent as long as Forest are playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think we'll get.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
he seems to. He's settled very well, and the fans love him, and it seems like it's a two-way thing. I think he's found. I think he's found a club that he wants to be at, and hopefully we can stay up and keep him, because he has been brilliant for us. I mean, he is a character, right? And that has been shown in a negative way towards United, but he's used that character and that little bit of arrogance in a positive way for us, definitely. So,
Mark, De Gea or Henderson, if you had to go one, if Kepa's ruled out,
I'd prefer De Gea once Varane's back, I think, because I do think that United are looking really solid. So I think it's very close though. I mean, like the extra 0.4 could make the difference and tip me towards Henderson. But at the moment, sitting here now, if United were at full strength and if Forest were at full strength, I'd go De Gea, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. You did say, Mark, you've got a United player in the draft at the moment. Can I nick the Black Box exclusive?
Yeah, it's Rashford, right? Which I think that I look at Rashford and at the moment, I think that obviously he's going to be a confident player, having come out of the World Cup as he did, and going into the World Cup, he looked like he'd turned the corner. I think with Ronaldo gone, Martial will probably play up front, but Martial will never last the 90. So you're likely to get maybe 10 or 15 with Rashford down the middle. I don't think Rashford's starting role is under threat. I think he will start most games. So, and it's the price as well. I mean, he's 6'7". I mean, that's, I like Bruno, I like Martial, but Rashford being the value pick there and having that confidence, and of the three players, he could do anything, right? I think Bruno will be a factor again in our thinking, but the price puts me off. I think Martial, the fitness is the issue there, but with Rashford, he could be anything. He could show form over the next, the last half of the season that is of a £9-10 million FPL asset. Alternatively, he could flop and go back into his shell. But I'm on his side, and I think he will have a good second half of the season.
All right, Gary, I'm highly likely to go Rashford as well. What's your take, mate?
He's the only United player I've got in my team. I was just having a check actually because I couldn't remember it, to be honest. But yeah, Rashford's the only United player I've got as it stands. I think that World Cup's done him. I mean, he's had a decent first half of the season for United, to be fair, but I think that World Cup will have done him a world of good to score 3 goals. Two of them were quite important as well, weren't they? So yeah, I think that should have brought him some confidence. No Ronaldo now, Martial, never fit, like Mark just said. So I think no matter what kind of system we play, Rashford will either play wide left or through the middle or wherever. There's always going to be a spot for him. So I think he's the obvious one, isn't he? Fernandes. It's just an awkward price for Fernandes, isn't it?
It's a lot of
neither
people
out nor something.
Want to go there. And
yeah,
I understand it. There's a narrative of Ronaldo's gone, etc. He'll probably be back on the pens, etc. We know he's a pen merchant, all that shite. But I think, yeah, it's the price. It's the 9.8. I discussed this with Suj on Monday and said, you know, if he flops in those first three and then you're walking into Man City and Arsenal away and you're at 9.8, I just ask people to go away and think about what's your escape, what's your plan? Are you leaving the money for a KDB? I mean, there's loads you can come down to, Foden's, Maddison's, Saka's, etc. That's probably it, isn't it? Rather than I'm going to go to Sterling.
Yeah, but I mean, this might just be the way I think about it. But even if you say, "Oh, I'll come down from Fernandes and I'll go to Maddison, whoever," but then in your mind, you know that you're freeing up £2 million. Well, then you're thinking, well, you're probably going to want to spend that as well, aren't you? And then
Mark's staying at -4, definitely.
Yeah, then you're in a -4, aren't you? Or you've got to roll, and it's just that thing of, do you really want to bank £2 million to not spend it for a week? And like you just said, if you want to go to De Bruyne or Salah or whoever, Son or whoever, you've got to find £1.5 million, £2 million. And I think it's another one of them because you've got probably a higher goal scoring asset at the same club for £3 million cheaper. It just doesn't seem worth it. And it might be one of them that becomes obvious, and but I don't think. And this thing about Ronaldo not being there, but Ronaldo's barely started this season anyway, and Fernandes has hardly ripped it up this season, has he? So even that narrative hasn't been true this season, because how many games Ronaldo started this season for United? 1, maybe 2 in the league. So yeah, I think it's Rashford or no one really.
Let me pose a question to you, Gary. If Rashford and Fernandes were both 8 million, and you were buying one, which one would you buy?
I think I'd still go Rashford, because I think when he's on form and when he's confident and when he's fit, which he arguably hasn't been for probably since before the Euros, this is someone who can get you 200 points. He can get you 20 goals a season. I suppose the same is true of Fernandes, but I just think it just seems so long since Fernandes has done it regularly. But yeah, through the same price, I think I'd probably still just on.
But it's without Ronaldo.
Sorry, I know, but I don't know if that's
like as is in the room.
Yeah, but I don't know if this thing about no Ronaldo. I think it's become a narrative that people have spun. And I mean, how many games has Ronaldo started for us this season? I mean, it can't be many.
I'd have to look, mate, and I can't really be bothered.
But the point being that it's not like Fernandes has got 10 this season, is it? Because Ronaldo's not been playing. The opportunities.
No, but if we look at Rashford, right? So I mean, 90 minutes against Fulham, nothing. 90 minutes against Villa, nothing. Goal in 90 minutes against West Ham, nothing in 80 against Chelsea, nothing. Admittedly, I can't explain to you how. Nothing in 90 against Tottenham, nothing in 90 at Everton.
Yeah.
Those are his recent starts, mate. He's one goal in his last 6 starts, and he's played nearly 90 in all of them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I suppose this is going to be true of every single player in the game now. How much stock do we put into those games before the World Cup? Because you're talking about form that was 3-4 months old. Is that more relevant than Rashford getting 3 goals at a World Cup and feeling confident? And
nobody say 2 against Wales, and 1 was a late goal against a Iran team that had thrown in the towel.
No, I know, but that Rashford won't be thinking that. Oh, and He'll be thinking, I've got 3 goals at World Cup. He won't.
Does he definitely start for you against Forest?
Well, yeah, because he didn't play a lot of minutes at the World Cup, did he? So he can't be tired. I can't. I mean, when did we get knocked out? The 10th, was it? So by then it'll have been over 2 weeks. He'll have had enough time to get over it mentally, as it were. So, no Ronaldo. I don't think Martial might not be fit. I don't, So I would have thought so.
Okay. Gary, do you think like the he fell out of love with the game and now he's kind of rediscovered it. Is that the narrative, or because it is odd the way he declined given the potential he had.
I think he was injured, wasn't he?
There was injuries as well.
Think
of course,
so.
He had injuries. He
shouldn't have gone to the Euros.
Shouldn't have gone to the Euros. Yeah, he should have rested for the Euros. And probably if he'd known that he was going to be a super sub, he probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. But I think he did the right thing by Southgate, and because Southgate wanted him, he went. Then he obviously went, and then he obviously missed the penalty. And then he had, I don't think he came back until maybe the October after the Euros. So then probably didn't have a proper pre-season. And then he came into the shit show of Solskjaer leaving and Rangnick and, and all that kind of thing. And I think it's taken the start of this season, a new manager, probably a better defined role in the team again, sort of in that wide left centre forward hybrid type role. And then, like I say, obviously James has just completely downplayed his 3 goals at a World Cup, but 3 goals at a World Cup should
celebrated all of them, mate.
Yeah, but 3 goals at a World Cup will do anyone's confidence good, won't it? So I think, look, maybe he did fall out of love with the game, but I think it's more likely that a run of pretty bad injuries, missing a penalty in a shootout, and then playing for 4 managers in 10 months at United. I think a combination of all that. He had a
bad back injury, didn't he?
Yeah.
In the run up to the Euros. Yeah. He probably shouldn't have gone. Then on top of his back injury, he tried to carry every child in the country on his back by trying to get them fed and stuff. And then there was the shit show of your last season as well. So yeah. Look, Rashford's going to go for me, despite the fact that I've played it down a little bit. I'm pretty sure he'll be in because I think the explosiveness at that value, I don't want to miss it if it is there, basically. And if it turns to be shit, we can move it.
You go to whoever, don't you?
Yeah. Would I consider moving it to Morgan Gibbs-White, Mark, or anything else in the Nottingham Forest lineup, or are we overlooking?
No, I don't think there's an asset in the Forest team at the moment. There could be defensively when we enter that run, when we're past the Chelsea game, maybe, because we do look solid. I've seen us creep up. Looking at the defensive data, I've seen us creep up now to mid-table, which is really encouraging. We will have to find a threat, and Gibbs-White will be central to that. So I think Gibbs-White might get back into my team before the end of the season, because I'll probably have little to play for, and I'll just stick a Forest player in to finish, basically. But I do, if we are in that battle towards the end, and I do think we're likely to be, where form goes out the window, and it's about there's other factors at play, and he's the player that's going to come to the fore for us. I think I can see him winning us some games at the end with his performances. So I do think he will be the one. Scarpa will be a factor as well, I believe, but it's so early days. The signs are good, but let's see him in the team first.
Is this where you tell FPL Towers you're expecting 4.5, so they price him at 5?
I'd love them to make him. I'd love them to make him 4.5 or 5, because I imagine they're going to stick him at 5.5, which would be harsh, really. I think 5 would be fair for him, but because he's not proven, and Gibbs-White came up with a very strong kind of goal and assist record from the Championship, whereas Scarpa arrives with a good record from Brazil, but not it's not double figures.
The unknown element probably means they'll go on the side of caution with the price, though.
Make him 5 million and have a bit of fun. Hopefully, is what they do.
I nearly, Mark, bought Awoniyi prior to game week 15 ahead of those Brentford Palace games. I really considered punting it, and I ended up buying Schumacher. I might as well have bought Awoniyi, to be honest. 11 minutes from them 2 home games off the back of playing over an hour against Liverpool and Arsenal. Why did that change?
We don't. He's not ready. I mean, I heard word that we'd sussed that out before the season started, so I knew he was not going to be. He's one for next season wherever we are. That's what I mean. If we go down, he's going to rip the Championship up. I think I can see very good signs there. He's when he's having shots, they're high quality chances. He doesn't look confident at the moment, but he's definitely got it in him, and physically he's got all the weapons he needs to be an effective top flight striker. And he has been in the Bundesliga, but we've seen people like other players, should we say, suffer from coming over to the Premier League and not being able to adjust. So I think that Awani's a player that we will see the best of him in 1 or 2 seasons' time, but I don't think he'll get 3 or 4 more goals before the end of the season. He might get some big goals for us, but I think eventually he's going to be an impact sub if he's not already.
Okay. Suj currently has Neco Williams in his draft. Any message for him?
Well, I love Neco Williams, but I don't know if his start is assured, because I do think that Loddy's still a factor. And when there's midweek games and we're still in the League Cup, James, you might realise. So we've got.
I noticed. That's why I brought this podcast forward from Thursday to Wednesday.
Yeah. So we might have some midweek games left. I think that Nico's probably 60-40 starter now. So I don't. Yeah, and if you're going to get a cheap defender, you want someone you can turn to if you need him. So I think unfortunately he slipped down the pecking order now.
I absolutely would have been in Blackburn tonight, mate, without any question.
You'd have gone, would you?
Yeah, I like the Darwin end at Ewood Park. It's been a good 20 years, but I'd fancy going back sometime. Good afternoon to our Rovers listeners. You beat us in the Cup, obviously, as mentioned. But interestingly, Worrell and Bolly played at centre-back in that game, a much changed team. And then they played in the league. Against Palace. Is that likely to stick now? Because those two are, and I'm not suggesting we go and buy them at 4.2, but is that worth keeping an eye on?
I mean, Worrell, he's very close to my heart. I want him to be a success, just like I want Yates to be a success, because he lives and breathes the club, and that has got him so far as a player. He was outstanding in our promotion season, and I still think there's a very good player in there. I like him in the team because he's our best player at starting things from the back, and that was such a proven tactic for us in the Championship. A lot of things started with Joe Worrell bringing it out of defence, and I think he's our best player at doing that. He's been caught out defensively. I think we're going to sign a centre-back though. I wouldn't be surprised if we follow through on our interest in Michael Keane and he ends up at Forest, someone like that, someone with experience. So I wouldn't be signing a Forest centre-back at the moment, because I'm pretty certain the new blood's coming in, and whoever comes in is going to be in the 11.
Okay. Gary, any love for Garnacho? Obviously, hero at Fulham, 4.3. There's lots of interesting options. Somerville, Bailey, Pereira. He's the cheapest of the lot. I guess minutes is the concern here. Or could he become a regular starter?
He possibly could. I think it's a shame for him that that Anthony and Rashford didn't go deep into the World Cup and didn't play. Obviously, Sancho didn't go at all. If it had been England-Brazil in the World Cup final, for example, Garnacho would have been an absolute stick-on to start this restart, wouldn't he? And then at that point, it'd have been worth a punt. But now you think all the people in his position, have had a decent break now. So I don't think the minutes are going to be there. And, you've just mentioned 4 or 5 midfielders there that are probably all going to, they're all going to have more minutes than Garnacho. So unless you've got a team, a squad where you're going to have 2 really cheap midfielders, then you could probably punt him. But if you're just going to have one, then you're probably going to have to go for a Pereira or a Bailey or, someone from Leeds, aren't you? So, yeah, unfortunately, because I'd love to punt on him, and, if you could get a 4.3 million midfielder playing with that run of fixtures, it'd be amazing. But, Anthony barely played for Brazil, did he? So he'll be fresh. Rashford we've spoken about. So it's going to have to be a no, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, I mean, my best guess would be front 3 will be left to right, Rashford, Martial, Anthony, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
With Fernandes, Fernandes behind that, and Casemiro on one other dick, right? It's going to be it, isn't it? I presume.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
It's going to be tough for us, isn't it? When you read those players out, they're quality players, and they're starting to gel, right? And that's the worrying thing for us going into that game. I think we'll look at Maguire and Lindelof and think we can cause some problems, but I don't see us keeping them out. So.
How do you think you'll set up, Mark, system-wise at United specifically?
I think it'll be 4-3-3. Yeah, I think it will, because that's been working for us towards the end, and I think he would have worked on that system over the break as well. The way I see it going is probably we'll concede early, and then we'll get a foothold and cause a few problems, and then United Bruno will catch us, and it'll be 2-0. Is what
Wow, there you go, Bruno. No one's buying him, but Mark's just called it.
He always does well against us, Bruno. And
when's he played you, mate?
Sorry.
When's he played you?
Yeah, I just no, he always no. What I mean is he always does well against whenever I've got a defender at Old Trafford, he always bloody takes a clean sheet off me. So I think that he's gonna break my heart again. I used to love Bruno. Whenever I had Bruno on my team, he's always done well for me. But whenever I go against him, like I have a defender against him, he always finds a way of either playing brilliantly or setting up the goals or scoring himself. So I think it'll be a classic counter, and they'll take us 2-0. But I think we'll give a good account of ourselves. I don't think that they'll steamroll us like Arsenal have done and like other teams have done so far. But yeah, I don't see us getting anything.
So you're saying 2-0. Mark's jumped the gun on the prediction. You're saying 2-0, but you're still not going to buy a United defensive player, you don't think, no?
No, because I don't want to be going into the game wanting a clean sheet for United, do I? It's a weird thing. I've not had it before. FPL's never met my team, so I'm trying to come to terms with how to play it really mentally, and it. I don't know how you adjust to it, Gary, but I find it very hard, like backing a defender against my team, because you want your team to score, don't you? So
Yeah, I think because of how good City and Liverpool have been the last 6 years, it's just treat it as two different things. Because if you try and plan your fantasy team around what United are going to do, or I don't want a City player, you've got no chance. So I've reluctantly
Gary's refusing to have Haaland not.
No, that's what I mean. I've just become numb to if I need triple City and triple Liverpool and.
Just do it.
I captained Haaland against us in the 6-3, for example. It's just two different things. I've just become numb to it. But yeah,
it's quite funny though that I said Bruno always does well against us, because that shows you how my FPL team has replaced Forest in my thinking. And I think of us as my FPL team, and now I can't think like that because there isn't us; it's Forest, and it's so odd. And that slip was very Freudian, because it just shows you how I've been treating my, FPL has almost replaced my kind of passion for Forest, and that's been reignited now. And now I'm totally confused.
So I've got a question for you, Mark. Do you think you'll start with Reece James?
Yeah.
Well, that's your problem next week then, isn't it? What you can do, bench him.
It will be, but Reece has always got something in him, and he's always got an attacking threat in it. But yeah,
that could be a free kick in a 2-1 loss, couldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Go on then, Gary. Go on. Do your correct score prediction for the game then, mate.
I'm gonna say a very.
You're gonna back Forest to score. I know you are.
He's gonna say 2-1,
I'm gonna say a very scratchy post World Cup 1-1.
Oh. That was my best case scenario, 1-1.
Okay, you've got to elaborate on that slightly, Gary.
I just think it's going to be just such a. I think all these games are going to be tough, especially the teams who've had a lot of players at the World Cup, and most of ours have gone. If they've, not many of them have gone far or played a lot of minutes, but they've all gone. I can just see it being one of them sort of. Almost like an early season, like we did against Brighton, start off pretty slowly and, probably no Varane, no Martinez. If there's no Dallo either, maybe, but, Martinez and Varane have transformed our season. So if neither of them play, I can just see it being a, scratchy, Christmassy, post-World Cup, 1-1.
Okay. Interesting. I would add on these three fixtures, I think the Wolves game in 18 is going to be quite a challenge for you, actually, Gary. It's been a fixture that's been difficult for you over the last few years, and obviously be Lopetegui's first game, and it'll be a very different atmosphere at Molineux. So I think
is it dinner time kickoff as well? Is it? I think.
I'm not sure actually.
Yeah.
But I think that game will be a bigger challenge than it would have been It's a 12:30 lunchtime, but it's New Year's Eve, and I've been to Wolves, and they'll be drinking at that time, so don't worry about it, mate. Right, brilliant. Thanks so much, gents. Gary, this is the bit where I'd say, where does everyone follow you on the bird app? But I understand you're taking a break, mate.
Yeah, I've binned it for a bit. Yeah, it's I found it. It's winding me up. So I've just thought, look, I don't need to be on this, so I got rid of it.
You can, if you're a Planet FPL patron, find Gary most days on our Slack.
Yeah, I'll be on the Slack. Yeah, if anyone wants to have a chat. But yeah, in terms of Twitter, I just thought, look, this is winding me up. Why am I on it? So the answer was staring me in the face.
He'll be back soon. Is my cat playing? Mark, where can everyone follow you, mate?
I am on Twitter, although I totally empathise what Gary's saying. I've only been on it really properly for a couple of years, and I've got a love-hate relationship with it as well. I stay off on match days. I can't stand it on match days. Come back in the evening, but so I know what you're saying, Gary. And I'm at FFScout_Mark on Twitter, and obviously I'm on Black Box every week. So we're back on.
When's the return, mate?
Yeah, we're back. We're back tomorrow, as this is recorded on a Tuesday. We're back on the Wednesday, so yeah, we'll hopefully be doing the weekly shows again. I can't wait to get back into it because I've missed Az, despite the fact he winds me up most of the time. I love him to bits, so I'm looking forward to being back on the show with him.
Never mind Bruno Fernandes as your FPL troll. I think Az is your biggest FPL troll. But do send him our love. We'll be tuning in the Black Box. What time you start, mate?
That'll be, I think we'll go for a 7:00 start from now on if we can get ourselves our shit together, but we'll see.
Once the tech issues are started, that'll be R7, but we look forward to it. Thanks so much, Gary, Mark. Absolute pleasure. I need to work out what's next now. Thursday, Sky Fantasy Football Podcast tomorrow, and me and Sid will be doing latest drafts and having a look at potential rearranged fixtures that might occur in January and February on Friday. Next Clash of the Correspondents will be next Tuesday, Tottenham versus Aston Villa with Ricky Saunders and Lee Jackson. Just leaves me to say thanks very much to Gary and to Mark. Good luck, gents. Cue music, please, man child.